morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody out there. I know we have an international audience. My name is Lawrence Sandler with 3D Crystal Cockpit 3D. I'm so glad you all taking the time to join us today for this training session. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because we get lots of questions around using our software and our conversion services, and a lot of those questions are common. So we thought we would address a lot of those questions today. So it's with pleasure that I'm going to introduce our president and founder of 3D Crystal and Cockpit 3D, Mr. Riyaz Datoo. I'm ready to kick this thing off. Are you ready? Let's go, Mr. Riyaz. Let's kick this thing off.
Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you guys had a fantastic holiday season and are looking forward to an extremely strong year in selling products in subsurface laser engraving. I want to thank Lawrence for that intro. I want to thank the entire production team. It's exciting. It's our first live stream through a training session on Cockpit 3D. So we're very happy to have had such a positive feedback on the last training session and requests for this. And we really, truly do hope that it's going to help you grow each and every one of your businesses. I also want to start off by saying that it is extremely humbling to be having the opportunity to be sitting in this chair and really having dialogues with so many of you and being in a position to motivate and educate a lot of you in subsurface laser engraving. I don't take that lightly, and it's really what motivates and excites me as well. I did start about 20 years ago, and I've had the fortunate opportunity of seeing young entrepreneurs who started their businesses nervous, excited, like a deer in the headlight, wondering if they made the right decision or not. And well, you know, they would get excited by their first few sales. They'd take photos of their receipts and send them over to us, showing us, you know, the $300 transaction. Sometimes it was the $800 transaction. And, you know, now because they were perseverant, they persevered, they were persistent, they were confident, they were creative. And now they are excited because they're playing the game. And that's important because when you treat it like a game and when you're excited about the contract that you've won, more so than the size of the prize, more so than the value or the money, that is when I believe you're a true winner. So I'm wishing you all the best. For those that have been around for a long time, thank you for putting your trust in us, in our software, in our technology. And for those that are new, welcome aboard. It's going to be a fun ride. All right. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get right to it. We've had a lot of questions come in, and I had the challenge of mixing this up between being a beginner's course or an intermediaries. So I kind of, you know, I'm going to make this a little bit more intermediary today, okay? Because I know the first one. Sorry about that. I guess I hit the wrong button there. Anyhow, so the first course that we did was a beginner's course. You can always see that on YouTube. Today is intermediaries. And you'll see a little bit more advanced, okay? And if you have any questions, we will open it up and you guys can, you know, feel free to send in questions through the chat on YouTube. I do want to also point out that you can watch this nice and clearly by going to the video, clicking on settings here, and selecting quality here, and make sure that you're on 1080p, okay? I'm going to just take a quick moment. Again, I did mention that this was our first live stream, so I'm going to take a quick moment just to confirm that we are, everything is okay. So if not, then I just want production to let me know by unmuting themselves. If I don't hear anything in the next 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to assume everybody can hear me okay and everybody's watching what we're doing. Okay, so turn your resolution on YouTube so that it's nice and high. All right, so let's go through some training, shall we? So first thing I want to do is I want to go through this one here. It's a 360 plane. And again, I'm hoping that you can see the launch of Cockpit3D on my screen. And if you can't, if production, no one can see this, then just let me know. And this here is a project for a plane that was 360. Now I want to point a few things out. We have multi-port view here. You can see it from the front, top, side perspective. I personally like to work in one screen, so I just click on that arrow there, and it zooms it in for me. Now I want to also say that I'm more of a fan of what I call 3D pop, which is the general conversions that you guys, 98% of you, 98% of your business is based on the regular 3D pop conversions. You will get from time to time customers asking you to do a 360 model. In this case, that's what we did, full 360. But again, I'm not a real fan of 360, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to do this plane, then I'm going to show you another plane done in 3D pop. You can see the difference yourself, okay? So, clients might think that they want 360. It is cool to have like the full model around. But again, generally people are looking at it from one perspective. In this case here, you've got a very broad wingspan. So I just want to point one thing out is choose the crystal that you're going to put it in carefully. It's not going to fit well in this. And if you try to fit it by clicking, let's make the layer active and auto sizing, that's how big it's going to be in the crystal so that the wingspan fits, right? So that's not cool. So you want to choose the size of your crystal carefully. You might want to orientate it. So let's say, for example, you use a 120 by 80 by 60, okay? The traditional way of setting it up is 80 width, 120 height, and 60 depth. This is not going to help because it looks like this, right? So what I would recommend is that you actually change the dimensions of your crystal. So it is, let me think this for a moment. It's going to be 120 width, height 80, and depth 60. Let's try that. I think one of my measurements is off here. It's going to be height 60 and depth 80. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. What we can do is we can actually rotate the plane. So if I take my plane here and I rotate it, and I look at it from the top, now you've got all this extra space, right? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and you actually get a little bit of a bigger plane. And what you can do is you can get creative. So you can say, all right, I want this plane to be bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate so it's kind of on a curve. And by doing that, like it's turning, now you've got all this extra space here, right? So we can increase the size even further. So you can play with rotations in order to maximize the size. Look at this now. It's much larger than before. Okay. Now, what most people do when they get the 360 file back is they simply click on, well, they'll set their geometry to projection, front enabled, and everything else is usually off, top, back. Usually everything is off when you're doing a regular 3D pop, okay? So if I just go right now, what's going to happen is they're going to send a note saying, hey, how come the wing is missing and half the plane is missing? And that's because they haven't set their point space settings. Remember, there's two things to this. One is having the correct geometry, which you have here. But two is preparing this geometry so that it is correct for points, for the point space setting, and so that it can be read by your laser. And to correct this and convert it to a point cloud, you have to make sure that you use the power of Cockpit3D. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to change the settings here to X-ray. So it essentially will show us points of everything that it sees, okay? And of course, you're going to have to choose your layers and your Z factors. So normally you're on 8 layers. Because this is 360, you might want to go 4 or 5 layers. Because it's shooting points from many directions, it's going to have a lot more points. So if you do 8 layers, some points that it could increase the probability of cracking, okay? So take a look at this. And let's look at it from the front. And there you go. Now, why am I not a fan? Yeah, it's cool. You've got your full 360 plane now. You see the wings are showing. All the different parts are showing. But the textures of the plane, the front texture is being disturbed by the texture on the other side of the plane. Because it's glass, right? So you can see right through. So not only are you seeing one side, you're seeing the other side as well. So how would I handle this? Well, because it's already 360 and the client wanted 360, to handle this, what I would do is I would probably stay away from X-ray in this scenario because of the textures. And I would shoot it from the front using perspective. So let's go, using projection. I'm going to shoot it from the front. And I'm also going to shoot it from the back. So whatever's missing gets filled. So wait, I'm not going to turn the back on yet. Shoot it from the front. And I want you to see what it looks just from the front again. Give it a second. Hang on. Edit geometry. Projection. Front. Save. Okay. Go. All right. So that's what we saw there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our settings. We're going to just enable, under projection, we're going to enable back. And I'm only going to have one layer because I just want to suggest that there's something there. I don't want to have it have the same number of layers as the front because that's what X-ray did. It had the same number of layers. And so therefore they were the same power, the back and the front. I want the front to be more robust, more pronounced than the back. So I'm just going to have it as one layer. And I'm going to put top enabled to one layer and click on go. Okay, and now you can see it a lot more clearly. The back isn't actually canceling out the front. Okay, so that's how I would do it in this particular case. By the way, this here is a natural shadow, right? Because if the light was coming from the front, then naturally the body of the plane would cast a shadow on the wing. So this is totally okay. It's very natural. And that's how I would do it. Now, I started this off by saying that I personally prefer 3D Pop 180, the CI conversions that you guys normally order, over 360. And why is that the case? All right, so let's do this here. So let's go to the A380. And normally you don't want to have multiple instances of the software running. So you'll see I've kept my 360 open. Now I've opened the next one. This will slow down your computer. So you don't want to normally do that, okay? But for the purpose of the training, and I'm on a strong graphics card here, I'm just going to do this for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the A380. And here it is. I like looking at the front view. Now, when I click on go, so let me just make sure that I would do it the normal way. So we normally have 8 layers. Front is enabled. Back and top should be disabled. And click on go. Look at the sharpness of this plane. Okay, and I want to compare it to this one. Okay, so again, if your client insists on 360, go ahead and do it. But I personally feel that you're getting a great quality with the 180 conversion. And again, 360 costs more. So are we happy to take 360 orders? Sure. I mean, your bill will be higher. But again, my excitement doesn't come from the size of the prize at this point in my career. My excitement comes from seeing you guys growing the industry, right? So I'm giving you my feedback on what I think would work better. So in this case, though, what's the problem is that you're missing the wing. So just do the same thing. Just go here, edit geometry, and turn your top on. Enable 2 layers is fine. Okay. And your back. Enable 2 layers. Save. Okay. Click on go, and it'll fill it up a little bit and suggest. There you go. Okay, so it looks close to 360, but it's not because it's not proportional. This wing is shorter than this wing, unlike the 360 where everything is proportional because it's true 360. This here has been designed so it looks best from the front. Okay, now I want to give you a few other tips. Again, intermediary level. Once you guys understand the software, you've gone through all the beginner training, and you want to start making better crystals, better than anyone else out there, okay? So here's what you do is start thinking about what sort of accessories you can add to the crystal that's going to make it even more real. So here's one. Go to Google, look for a nice image of just clouds, white clouds with good contrast, and get that converted on Cockpit3D, and then keep that so that whenever you're doing something that's air related, you might want to include that. So here, take a look. And I'll click on go, and I'll also add a logo in this case. Click on go. Check that out. Isn't that cool? Oh, one thing I don't like about this, I can see the square around the logo here. So this was supposed to be black, but it's actually maybe an off black. So that's not cool. I don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I could launch it in Photoshop by clicking here, or for something simple like that, I can just click on my adjust filters. I'll just increase my contrast a bit. Contrast makes the whites whites, the darker darker. I did that to the layer of the logo. I didn't touch the airplane. I was happy with that. I'll click on go one more time. And it's gone. All right. Excellent. So I want to remind you, if you have any questions, feel free to send them in. I'm just going to quickly check in if any questions have come in. Lawrence, is there anything from your side?
Yeah, we just have a nice comment with clapping hands saying amazing work.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
So thank you for that.
I should say all the letters that have been coming in over the years, the comments that we get are very encouraging, and it definitely fuels us and keeps us going. So thank you very much for that, whoever sent that through. All right, so we've done the plane. I want to do a dog. Let's get into the dog. And I'll give you a few tips on this as well. Now, while that's loading, I want to just talk about, a lot of people ask, well, how can I grow my business? I want to mention to you guys, I always say be creative. Okay, there's so many niches out there. Just to give you a stat, I mentioned, all of you guys know that we pioneered this. We spearheaded it 20 years ago. Now, a lot of new entrants are in, and we encourage that. I've been through maybe two and a half recessions where we are. We went through the crash of 2008. Our revenue in 2008, 2009 was high, and it's been growing throughout. So for any of you out there that are worrying about all the talk on the recession and stuff, I would say that there's two ways to look at it. One is that you're selling a product that's not a necessity. It's at the end of the line expense, but there's a lot of people with disposable income that want to feel happy. And this is a custom product that's unique to other gifting items. And so therefore, do I have any concerns? Absolutely not. I can tell you that at the beginning of COVID, when everything was crashing and a lot of people were going through challenging times, this particular industry had a very, very strong year and a year to follow as well. So for those of you worrying about that, I would say not to. I would say that creativity comes from finding new niches. It comes from business models such as stores in store. The first thing that everybody thinks about is mall. Why? It's the easiest thing. You fill in an application, you have a space, you're able to have traffic and sell your product. But I'm just going to tell you that that's not the be all and end all. There's a lot more that you might set up a kiosk or retail location in the mall. It's fine, but there's a lot more that will complement your business alongside that. Okay. Going to store in store concepts. That means going to other venues that are already paying rent for whatever it is that they sell, that are already paying staff for that venue. And all they're doing is adding your product, and they're getting a cut, which is totally okay because you're not having to pay rent. You're not having to pay any staff. And you're not even having, to pay for the technology to be there. All you really have to do is get them to set up the product and place the orders with you. And, they make some money, you make some money, and you're able to create some amazing collaborations as well. So, ideas like that. Now here, we've got a dog. So the customer requested to have the background included. I would recommend that, if you're going to include backgrounds, especially in this case here, maybe include up to a certain point, but don't go all the way to the top. In my personal opinion, it doesn't look as nice to do that. And then let's just quickly go to our settings. Again, your default setting is usually front enabled, and everything else would be disabled. Back is disabled, left is disabled, right is disabled, top is disabled, bottom is disabled. Okay, good. So I'm just going to click on go here. All right. So it looks okay from the front. When we rotate it, you've got a big hole over here. Okay. So the way to fill this particular hole, in my opinion, is to use an algorithm called portrait mode. So portrait mode means that you're going to come into your settings, click on portrait. And again, it's the same settings, 852, but this is the difference, is your sample radius. The higher the sample radius, the more it's going to fill from this point here to that point there. The longer it's going to take to calculate. And sometimes you don't want it to be filled so solid because then it looks like the head is unnatural. All you want is to kind of have some scatter of points there so it's not distracting or obvious to the eye, right? Because right now that shadow is very obvious to the eye. So sample radius of maybe 2. Let's try that. Click on OK and click on Go. I'm just going to ask Shell, do you remember what our normal settings are for sample radius? Is it 1? Is it 1.5, 2, 2.5, or 3?
It is 3.
3. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So in this case here, I've done 2, and I can already see that it's filled it up. So you can decide if you want to do 2 or 3. In this particular case here, I'd probably just keep it at 2 because if I do 3, it's going to get quite filled. Let's see here. Again, it's personal preference. Okay, so actually it's very similar to 2. So, but anyway, the point of this is using portrait mode to fill in gaps like that. You might have someone holding flowers out in front of them, and it creates this huge shadow on their chest. Okay. Now the other thing I want to do is on the dog. I want to talk about our non-uniform scale. I love this one here, so I'm just gonna go and put it into a 3D keychain. And let's just auto size it by clicking here. And it's a little small, so I want to make it bigger. Maybe I'm just going to zoom in to the face of the dog. And I'm going to rotate it. And you see what's happening here is the nose is getting cut off. So in these scenarios, sometimes you might have a 3D order for like the notched crystal, which is thinner. And you want it to be sized larger from the front view, but from the side view, all the faces are kind of half out on the Z. So use your non-uniform scale. And there you go. So you're still able to retain the 3D, but it is now fit to the crystal. Okay. All right. So that's all I want to do in terms of talking about this particular project. Let's move on to the next one. I'm just going to take a quick pause and check in with production if there are any questions that have come in.
No new questions at this time.
Okay.
Actually, there is one. It's just a little bit more on point space settings and specifically why not to change those in the point cloud itself.
Oh yeah, good. Okay, that's a good one. So over here we've got a point cloud. Okay, so this here we had already clicked on Go. We created the point cloud. So it could be argued that all right, I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this file, and then I'm going to open it up again. So I'm going to save this as the point cloud, as the CAD or the CBF or the DXF or the RMD. And I'm going to open it up and resize this. But you don't want to resize the point cloud. You'd never want to resize your DXF, your CAD, your CBF. You don't want to resize those, okay? Because they've already been created with the point space setting that you set here that works for your laser. The moment you resize a point cloud, you're compressing those points. So this no longer holds true. Or if you are expanding the size, you're expanding the space and it no longer holds true. So if this here was created right now for a 9060 block and I compressed this point cloud, this CAD, to fit into a keychain, I would still have 1.3 million points here, now all compressed into a keychain. What's going to happen? It's going to crack. And if I expand it into a mantle, a 180 by 120, for example, what's going to happen? It's going to be so thinned out, the image is going to be very light. So if you want to resize, you always want to go to your scene, this file here, and resize it. Then click on Go again, create your point cloud, and then and then save it. And that's the power of Cockpit3D, because at the beginning, when this all started, all that we were spitting out were CADs and DXFs. And if there was ever a need to change anything, or a customer wanted to buy something else, you would need to send a request to have this redone. Many times remodeled, because it might have been from some time ago. Now you have the file, you can resize it as you wish. Okay, so that's the power of Cockpit3D and giving you control. All right, let's move on to the next example here. So, logos. So this was a question that came in. Is I got a 3D model done for a logo, but every time I click on go, it is not turning out 3D. So if we look at this, he's got his 3D logo here. But when let's just see here, he's on projection. Right. So let's look at it from the side. So when I click on go, it's not retaining the 3D. Now, why is that? Well, the reason is because it's only going to create 3D for what it sees. So when I look at it from the front, it's only going to create points for what it sees. So when I look at it from the front, this is what I see, this is what the camera sees, and this is what the points are going to be created on. And that's why we always say that 3D works best when we have, angle shots, when we can see like the depth between the front and the back, and that's what creates 3D. When we have just a flat plane here, it's very difficult because it cannot be seen. So what I recommend in this case is you can turn, let's try X-ray. X-ray looks at everything, right? And click on go. There we go. And now you got your 3D. And just a reminder, you can click on the layer and you can expand it or make it thinner, however you want. And there you go. Now there's another way of doing 3D where you can control the power of the sides here. So that's called vector. If you want to do a vector project, you can click on the 2D section and click on vector depth, and you'll get a vector file. And that looks like this here. Like that. So when you're doing a vector, again, same thing. You're able to size it how you want. However, this time, when you go into your settings, you'll notice here, edit vector defaults. So this only works when there's a vector order. And now you can actually create your side fill. You can control your side fill. So I can have a side fill of, say, 1 because I don't want it to be too strong. And I can click on go. And there it is. And the thickness of this here, the front, is controlled by your layers. Okay. And if I want to have a side fill that's stronger, mind you, be careful because you don't want it to crack. So you're going to have to adjust your point space settings accordingly. Click on go. And I would definitely do a test because vector does have a lot more points. And so therefore your regular point space settings might not work. You might, if you're using 0.07, you might have to go to like 0.10 or 0.12. Okay. And here you can see it's much more thicker along the side. Okay. So that's vector logo. So these questions that have come in, I hope that they have answered the questions that you had and the doubts that you had and how to do it. I want to show you a couple other things that will help you out. Sometimes when you are producing a crystal, when you're maybe getting a new laser even, it doesn't matter if you're new to the industry or not. When you get a new laser, many times you might find yourself in a situation where your laser isn't burning perfectly center. And how do you test this? So what we do is we do a center test. And I'm going to show you how I do it, how I've done it for years. Is I usually take a keychain because it's more obvious on the keychain. It's a smaller item. It's easier to see what's not centered. Okay, now I'm going to take a 2D white JPEG, which I don't have right now. So I'm just going to take what I've got open, which is this plane. And I'm going to make it 2D by just flattening it here with the non-uniform scale. Let me just hide these clouds by double clicking on the layer. And all I want is white. So I'm just going to, whoops, click here. And let's just zoom in. You can say this is a very non-efficient way of doing it. What you would normally want to do is just click on here and open up a JPEG, okay? Anyway, so forget the small little black window there. It doesn't matter. And turn your light maps off, by the way. Turn your light maps off. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to, this is a keychain. So I'm going to set my margins, 20, 30, 15. I actually want my margin, I don't want it to go right to the edge. So maybe I will create a margin of, what is the side? The side is 20, right? So if I have 2, it gives it 16. Yeah, 2 is good. And 20, 30, 26. Yeah, this is good. So 2 millimeter margin is good because this is the edge here. So this is the safety area here. It's given a 2 millimeter margin. So I just change this to 1 layer. And I believe production's going to keep this video on YouTube. So you'll be able to see it. Oh, shoot. You know what? I shouldn't have done that. Because even though it's going to trim, it's going to calculate points for everything right now. So you're trying to take a shortcut here and it ends up costing more time. All right. Let me go into another window. And let me see if I could just find any JPEG. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this one simple here. I'm just going to kind of audio explain it. So what you're going to do is you're going to open up a white JPEG, okay? You're going to size it to the size of this keychain. Make it 1 layer because you don't want it to be 10 layers. You want to see that 1 layer directly in the center of that rectangle keychain. So make it 1 layer, click on go and save that. And then what you want to do is you want to burn that keychain in the laser and just see, did it actually look centered on the front view? So that means that from here to here it's centered. Did it look centered on the Z view? So that means right down the middle. Is that point cloud centered? And did it look centered from this view here? That way there. And if it does, then you're good. And if it doesn't, then what you need to do is you need to kind of adjust the center settings on your laser. And of course, that depends on the type of laser that you have. If you ever need any consulting, you can reach out to Lawrence for help on that. But that's essentially what you do is you want to use a keychain, just a flat white JPEG in order to do a center test. All right. The other thing I wanted to teach in this session was our PDF generator. So a lot of people don't know about this. So I'm going to explain it to you. And again, if you have questions, just type it in the comments and it's monitored. Lawrence, feel free to interject if there are any questions, by the way, okay? But I'm just going to...
There is a question. The refresh doesn't always seem to reflect any changes that were done in Photoshop. So it sounds like an intermittent problem where the user does click refresh and they do see the changes, but sometimes they're saying they don't always see the changes back in our software. So that may be a deeper topic outside of today's scope, but I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, thanks for the question. So what I will do is I will just say that, let me just talk you through it. So make sure you're on the right layer. You'll launch Photoshop here. It doesn't have to be a new version of Photoshop. You can see this is a very old version of Photoshop, which just demonstrates that it's not necessarily the latest versions that make it good quality. It's understanding how to use your tools, right? So what we're going to do here is we're just going to create a little X. Okay, so we'll just create an X here, okay? And if you go back to Cockpit and refresh it, nothing's going to happen. Because what I didn't do is I didn't press Control S, which is save. So that's the first step. Now that I've done that, if I click on refresh, you see the X. Now, I go back to Photoshop because I realized that, wait a second, I also wanted a Y. And I click on Control S and I save it. And I come back to Cockpit. It should not work. Okay, because if you want to do a second edit to this file that you've already refreshed on, you got to launch it again. Because if you don't launch it again, remember, it's a temp file. So now that I've launched it again, I can add my Y, Control S. So if it's an intermittent problem, then there's nothing wrong with your Photoshop. There's nothing wrong with your version of Cockpit 3D. It's probably just because either you didn't Control S or you tried to make a second change without launching it as a new texture. It's a temp file. So once you Control S and refresh, you're going to have to do, once you click on refresh, you're going to have to launch again. All right. So what I wanted to show you was the PDF tool. So if I click on PDF, this is a very professional way for you to send quotes or information or previews to your customers. And not only that, it's a way for you to keep track and record. So for the future, when they order again, you know exactly how to produce an identical piece. This is good for corporate, okay? So first things first is you want to browse and put your logos. Just click on browse and add your logo, all right? The second thing is you want to add fields. You can customize this. So for example, you might say, all right, the PO number. You might want to add the burn time in minutes. And you might want to add laser, the laser station, and finally the quote. So if I save these settings, it's going to save these fields. So every time I generate a PDF, it's always going to have these fields. And if I want to change it, I can always X out or, you know, add new ones. So PO number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this case, burn time in minutes. Let's say that the burn time was 15 minutes. And let's say that for this particular customer, I charge $8 a minute. So do the math. What's $8 a minute? Okay, we're at 120. Congrats for anybody that did that in their mind before I calculated it. Well done. Sorry, that's not laser station. That's the quote is 120. And the laser station is, you're all going to grow. Okay. If you're expecting to stick with one laser, that's a bad goal. You're serious about your business, right? You want to grow your business. So don't expect to rely on just one laser. You should already be forecasting having multiple lasers. We don't sell lasers, so I'm not here to promote selling lasers. I am very open to share the lasers that we use, which are the 3D laser box. And, you know, if you want information on that, reach out to Lawrence. He can send you more info on the different models that we use here. But it's a fantastic laser for many reasons. Laser station. So let's say that, you know, you're running, call it a dozen lasers. Okay. So what laser did you use to burn this? Because sometimes there are slight variations between lasers and you want to make sure that you're going to burn this project in the future again on the same lasers. This is just an example of fields. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add the preview. So what do I want to add? Do I want to add the scene shot or the point cloud view? Maybe both. So let's do the layout, front, save. Let's add also the front point cloud view, which is what we see here. Save. Let's also add the left point cloud view. Save. So I've got 3 views here, okay? And now what I can do is I can save this PDF and send it. Before I do that, I just want to view the PDF. So just click on view. And here it is. So you can see that on the layout view, actually, it's not good to do it on a white background. So you might want to change that, or you might not want to use it in this particular case, but you can see the point cloud view is good. So I'm going to go back, say, you know what? Customer doesn't need to see my working scene view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that one there. And there we go. It automatically scales it. It positions it properly on the page. And now you've got all your information here, and it automatically puts the date as well. Okay. All right. So I think that is pretty much all the files that my team prepared. We went through PDF generator, center test. We went through the logos, the planes. I have an army machine here. I can take you through that one quickly. Before, maybe I'll keep that one as the last one. Is there any other questions, Lawrence, that you want to share with us?
Yes, I did type a response in the chat, but maybe you can reinforce my answer. The question was, they receive their DXF back. Something went wrong, in the burn, so they want to make some edits. And the question is, I try to open the DXF in Cockpit, and it's all transparent. And my response was, you would open the original CI file, the scene file that you got with your order download along with the DXF. You would make the changes in our CI file and then save a new DXF. In other words, you don't open and edit DXF files in our software. It would have to be our scene file, and then you save a new point cloud in DXF format.
Your response is correct. I want to point a few things out. Number one is that if you are getting a DXF file back, or a CAD file, or a CBF, or a TKBR, or an RMD, all these are point cloud file types, okay? If you're getting that back with your scene file, it is easy to put that file in your laser and burn it. But in my opinion, I don't think that that's the smartest, most serious way of running your business. I really feel that preparing it the way that you like in Cockpit is important. And so when you got your DXF file back and you weren't happy with it, and you wanted to make changes, it's the scene file that you would have opened. So I'm glad that you're using the software and you're trying to make changes. It's fantastic, but it's definitely the scene file that you're going to want to change, because when you open up the DXF, it's already a point cloud. So there's nothing that even if you change the settings here, it's not going to change anything. You have to open up your scene file. That's the editable, workable file. And that's where you can resize it, change your point space settings if need be, and do it. All right. So this here is a cool project. And if I take a look at it and click on go, this is a 3D here. Okay. The comment might come that, oh, the roof is missing when I click on 3D and generate the point cloud. So I just want to remind you again that when we're creating point clouds, we are doing so based on the 180 3D pop, which is 98% of your business, from a front perspective. So yes, the top can't be seen because from the front view, I can't see it. If I could have seen it from the front view, then the points would have been casted. In this case, it can't be casted. So there's just arbitrary geometry here. Okay, the artists could have actually cut this out before sending it to you, but there's no need. They know that when they click on go, it's not going to show the points there anyway. So they're just saving time in order to get orders back out on time. It doesn't make a difference because when they click on go, that's not going to show, right? Now, if you want something like that to show and you start wanting to get creative, then what you can do is, in this case here, let's say I'm in the rush and I want something like this to show. Maybe what I'll do is I'll turn on my top view and I'll enable it and I'll do my fill solid. So what fill solid does is it ignores texture. So you see here, there's texture. It's kind of stretching different black and white patterns and stuff. It's irrelevant. Okay. It's got nothing to do. It's completely arbitrary. So I want that to just be white. So what I can do is I can just click fill solid, and how white do I want it to be? So I'm going 20%. I can go up to 100. Okay. So I'll just go 20% and I'll just go save. Okay. And now I'll click on go. And so the top, it's now going to include whatever it can see there. Actually, you know what? That's not the top. That's the, let me just look at the front view. That's the left. The points are coming from that side, right? So that's the left. So let me do this again. Edit geometry. My top goes off. It's my left because I rotated this. Fill solid, enabled, save. Okay. Let me just rotate it and then click on go. Okay, now you can see it lightly. Let me just do my control bracket to make it brighter for visual purposes. It's getting brighter, not because it's going to be brighter in the crystal. It's getting brighter. It's like me going to my monitor and pushing the brightness button up so I can see it visually better. So that's all I've done with the control bracket here. This doesn't look natural though, the way it's cut. So maybe what I'll do is kind of get rid of most of it and just keep a little bit there. Something like that. And you've got a little bit of the top showing. Okay. So that's essentially, you know, a little workaround there without having to commission a 360 project. And if you really, really wanted to have it there, but again, in our case, it's again, from the frontal view is what's optimal. All right. So with that said, just wanted to ask again, if there's any questions, any further questions that you have. It could be subsurface laser engraving related. It could be Cockpit3D related. Feel free. Lawrence, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah. The question is, what training is available, you know, over and above these sessions? So if someone wanted, you know, one-on-one training, for example, or for a staff member, you know, they've got somebody new in their production environment and want to get them trained up quickly without them watching a lot of videos, which is definitely beneficial. But how can they augment that learning curve?
Okay, so what I would say is that we're trying our best to do. I'm going to make every attempt I can to do more lives. I would highly recommend that you guys send in emails in the subject. Just put in question for next live session, and we will procure all those questions that we can answer them together on a live session. If there's something urgent concerning your laser or something urgent concerning specific one-on-one training videos that you want done for a project that you're working on, by all means, we're here to help. Contact Lawrence. We do have different packages available for doing specific trainings, and we can definitely help you out with that. Now, I see a lot of, my goodness, there's a lot of chats here. So I'm just going to.
There is a good one here, which might be a great way to close.
Okay.
Where the person is asking, can you enlighten us on what are your plans for 2023? You know, what improvements do you plan for the software? What improvements do you plan for the order portal? So I think that's a good one that you may want to kind of wrap up with.
Sure. Thanks, Lawrence. Thank you for the question. I would say that there's a lot of surprises, and I hope that they come to fruition because I love coming out with new things. I do this again for the fun of it. I started this off by saying that the day that you're running your business, when you're more excited about closing the deal and winning the contract, more excited about that than the size of the prize or the size of the revenue that you're making on the transaction, that's when you're really winning. Okay, so that's what your goal should be. And we have a lot of interesting and exciting plans to help your business using Cockpit3D. One of them is public. It's out there. It's something that I've been talking about for a long time, is the social broadcast. And that test run, the beta that we did, was very, very successful. But you can imagine there's so many programming projects that come into play here that it always kind of gets shafted, but it's definitely on my list to get it out there. And this is a note: if production can please let programming know that we got to get this one closer to the top of the list. You know, we'll continue to take your feedback and work that in to both the software as well as the online side. So if you also have recommendations to the order portal where you place your orders, please send those recommendations in, because we are listening. And although we can't make or reflect changes immediately right away, we're always listening, and we will slot it and try and do something that's going to benefit the mass. Okay. So with that said, I want to thank each and every one of you. It truly is an honor to be here teaching, educating, and helping you with your businesses. Send those transaction receipts. Okay. The best part, you know, of this entire journey ever since I started was when the entrepreneurs would send in photos of their transactions at the till, and just seeing their excitement when they did that, and then encouraging them further. A lot of them now have been doing it for a decade or longer, and now it's not just a single till. They're running like huge businesses with national accounts and stuff. Congrats to them, and wishing all of you success. Remember, subscribe, like, share, and turn all of those notifications on so you know every time we decide to release a new video, or as we did today, decide to go live. Thanks for watching.